Okay, bro. So just the audio recording. So basically, one of the ideas I've got, because we're working on like a sort of apocalypse sort of zombie sort of tale. It's more of a survival story. Now, what happens with the competition is it wants the underlying meaning of the story. So it wouldn't be like David and Goliath is the big guy versus the little guy. It's the underlying message that it's trying to tell, and that is pretty much what they want, what the competition wants. So I suppose the first question is, do you think a survival tale about a group of individuals and how they like change as characters through like the heat of survival is something that's already in biblical text?
Yes, it's called, we use a religious word for it called redemption, like the Shawshank Redemption film. I don't know if you've ever seen that. There's a lot of stuff around in the media and biblically that talk of people going through a tough time and coming out the other side changed for the better somehow. In fact, we would link the life of Jesus Christ exactly the same, going through his ministry, crucified on the cross, and yet coming alive again 3 days later. That to us is what we call redemption. So although we don't literally do it, we look at part of our faith journey is about becoming changed people, and to look for the good news stories where people have been through a very difficult time perhaps, but that whole terrible experience has somehow changed them for the better. They start to look outwards towards the world, perhaps, how they help people who are perhaps going through the same terrible journey at the time. I don't know, through addiction or anything like that. Does that help?
Yeah, it's like the story in the verse though. So Jesus on the cross would be one. I've got a book with me with the chapters and stuff on. So tell me which one to look out for, then I can.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most clearest stories, perhaps, is the disciple next to Jesus, his closest disciple, called Peter. He calls Peter, who is just a fisherman, to be one of his disciples, and he becomes his closest disciple for the 3 years that Jesus has his ministry on the earth. When Jesus is arrested by the Roman authorities and the temple authorities, actually Peter goes through a period of denial, and he actually denies Jesus 3 times. Somebody across a marketplace says, "Oh, weren't you one of the friends of this Jesus character?" Because everybody had turned on him, and his fear overtook him, and he says, no, and he denies his knowledge of Jesus 3 times, and the cock crows, and he realises what he's done, and he runs away. When Jesus comes back again as the resurrection, Jesus has to release him from his guilt. So he asks Peter a question 3 times, the same sort of question. "Simon Peter, do you love me?" And Peter says, "Yeah, you know I love you. Then feed my sheep." And out of that comes a realisation that Peter has to carry on the work of Jesus. And he knows he's forgiven for that time he denied Jesus. And he carries on, and of course he founds the church. So that is a good one to look out for.
Okay.
Yeah? You've got characters in the Old... Are you looking at Old Testament passages as well?
It literally, yeah, it can be anything. It says biblical, just any biblical reference, but they really want the underlying.
They want the underlying story.
Not just how it appears, not a group of friends who are back to Jesus. It's really like they really want to hit it.
Yeah. I suppose another one to look out for in the New Testament would be John the Baptist, who was quite a strange, crazy man, and he lived in the desert. People wondered what he was about, and actually he had his own following.
To take sugar, sorry.
No, fine, you have some sugar if you want sugar. You've got John the Baptist, who's a character who was around before Jesus gets to his ministry. And he's this strange, weird guy out in the desert that keeps telling people that they should be prepared for something big is going to happen. And he's such a charismatic figure that crowds start flocking to him in the desert. And they get prepared for this big happening. They don't know quite what it is. By being washed in the River Jordan. And what actually it is, what he's talking about, is the Messiah coming, which is Jesus Christ. And he hands over his ministry to Jesus. And how he hands it over, you expect him to be quite a powerful figure in the story all the way through, but actually what he does is he lets it go, and he lets it go to Jesus, and then he gets arrested, John the Baptist, and he actually gets killed by Herod, or rather Herod's wife, who has got a thing about him. So that again is how a message gets passed on from one to another, and it doesn't completely die. So would you like me then to email you with all these biblical texts? I'm not very good at chapter and verse and telling you, look just there.
Which one? Yeah,
but
okay.
if you like me to write some of these stories with the chapters and the verses, and you can look at them for yourself, what I'll do is I'll repeat what I'm saying on here, and then you can try and have a look to see whether you agree that these are about redemption or about the future. That's a message being carried.
Is there many stories where? Because obviously I looked into the story of the plague, but that seemed to be like more of the Pharaoh sort of denial of God or something.
Yes, that's right. It is a denial.
So I didn't think that one would fit, but I'll just explain the story. It's basically like in this verse, it's she's running from something. Like she's had loss of a child through this like invasion of like the living dead or whatever. And she's now joined together with a bunch of characters, and they're fighting to survive and trying to keep safe. She acts as the leader, like sort of thing. Like she manages to pull everyone through quite a lot of things. There's different sorts of characters in it. There's one that plays a more sort of like he thinks he's in control, but he just leads a lot of them to peril. And you've got all these different controls. You've got one character that's sort of is like cautious, like a cautious kind of character, but also very like I can't explain. Like not egotistic, but sort of like pompous.
Yeah.
So you've got the pompous character. You've got the controlling character. You've got a venerable character, and also the soldier. And basically what happens through it is you slowly see that this character, the main character Amanda, turns out to be the life and strength and like to carry him sort of through it. And it's only until they like lose certain characters that this occurs. But like what the main focus is on is how they all go through it, like you say, redemption, but some of them come out of it a bit, do you know what I mean? Like Amanda comes out of it a much more harder person than when she went in.
Oh right.
So I'm not sure if that is
that's not redemption.
It's not, is it? But it's sort of like change.
But is it a harder person that she becomes more cynical? Or is it?
No, not in the sense that she's like evil or anything like that, but she comes out of it quite hard. Like she went into it quite scared, do you know what I mean? But now she's got the strength to survive. But of course, all the things, the acts that she's had to do has made her a harder person, less. Like you can imagine, like you've got to kill living dead and zombies and that, you know what I mean? Some of the things that she had to deal with.
But would you look at that as a person that's running away? But would you look at the character that she comes out at the end of it, where she's got to, she's got to kill the living dead, she's got to stand up and be courageous? Would you see then that character is harder, or would you say she is braver and becomes a leader?
Yeah, it is.
Because that's two different things. Courage, which makes you stand up and be counted, and if she goes through having to murder and kill an evil force, let's put it like that, like the living dead, is she doing that for the right reasons? Is she doing it in order to protect the friends?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she goes into it with no courage whatsoever. Comes out of it with the courage.
So that's the message, really. It's about how joining this group of people then, she actually finds herself and she becomes a leader, and she has the courage to face the dark force or the evil, whatever it is, the zombies, which are, I suppose, in the media are evil. They're dark, aren't they? They are from another side. So you have to sort out. You've said she's harder, but is she? Is she harder, or is it that she's found her courage and she stands up as the person of courage and leads those people?
I think it'd be nicer to do more of a courage tale than the harder.
Yeah, because if hard can become that she could almost become one of them by being harder. You know, that she doesn't care for anybody, because on the dark side it's usually care for the other goes first, because they're all self-absorbed with each other. So if in your story she's actually looking out for other people and her child, did you say she had a child?
Yeah, but no, she loses a child.
She loses a child.
So that's where the hardness sort of comes from. But it would be nice to give her a nice ending where she comes out of it. It's like how I'd have to portray it, I suppose, is maybe she was like a sort of a weak parent maybe, do you know what I mean? That didn't sort of fight or whatever. And when she comes out of this, like, she hasn't got a child anymore, but she's now like a lot more courageous.
So does the loss of her child, it can take you both ways. Sometimes when you go through something as horrific as that, in my experience of having to be alongside people that lose children, it can take you one of two ways. It can either take you into yourself and you never forget the awful thing that's happened to you, and you spend your days looking inwards, that I don't want to face the world because I've been through such a terrible thing. The other way that I've seen is that people lose a child, and actually what they turn their energies into, what they turn their grief into, is something positive. For example, I walked alongside a lady who lost her child at the age of 7. Her child was 7. So she spent all her days, once she got over the huge grief, of actually fundraising to make sure that parents have more of a child, their child, who suffered from the same illness, have more of a chance. And you see this on the news sometimes, don't you? So the hurt's still there, and the grief and all that, and you could say a certain hardness, but it's where the energy goes out for the good, for the greater good. I'm going to make damn sure these parents don't suffer like I did, because there was no answer for my little girl or boy. So have a look at that.
So yes, I mean, I suppose because the positivity would be she's lost the child, but now she's using her energy to look after the group to make sure they get home to wherever they need to get to and sort their things out. She does that like the mother, and she acts like the mother role when she's in this group, and like slowly through that she becomes the leader. But
I mean, you could portray the hardness that she's gone through, and it does make you hard to a certain extent, but it's where that hardness of energy drives. Now, if it drives out or whether it drives you inward. So it sounds to me like in the story that she's actually using it outwards, in memory of her child that she lost. She doesn't want anybody else to suffer the loss that she had.
Absolutely, I don't have to.
Does that help?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely.
So do you want a biblical story then?
Yeah, to either match that, and if it doesn't match, then I need to talk with you then to see, I don't know, what other biblical stories. I know there's a lot out there, but like just for your personal preference, what you would think would make a good short film. And like, but probably you'd have to think of the times of what we're in now and what's going on. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously that's going to
But you've got to have a biblical root to that film.
It has to be. That is the underlying thing. It doesn't matter how good the film is or this, that, and the other. It has to be the story.
Two characters come to mind again in the New Testament, but I can go back and think of an Old Testament character. But for me, that says a lot about Mary, the mother of Jesus. That she brought up Jesus as a child. She had this amazing news. She was bearing the Son of God. You know, she had all this to carry, and Jesus grew up, and she had to watch her son die on a cross. She lost him. Which she went through hell because she didn't realise that actually that was what was going to happen. When you're told you're bearing the Son of God, you think it's all going to be happy. But it wasn't. Her son went to the cross for the world. So she went through this terrible grief period, and in fact Jesus on the cross, one of the last things he did was give the care of his mother to a friend called John. He said, look after her, you both need each other. And then he dies. And she's in terrible grief, doesn't realise what's happening. But then she hears that he comes back to life again, but that he can't stay on earth. So what she does is she carries on his ministry with all that group of friends, that group of disciples.
Is that what she does?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So Mary still survives after all that grief, and she knows that it's just another beginning, death. She gets that message and carries on following Jesus' command, her son's command. Another woman that had the same experience but in a different way was Mary Magdalene, who was one of the disciples of Jesus. Because the Bible is very sort of it's very sort of male oriented, but actually Mary was quite close to Jesus. Some would say closer than is ever given in the pages of the Bible, but she carries on his ministry too as a disciple. So there are two examples, and I'll certainly look for more for you in the Old Testament, where a woman has gone through a terrible time and come out the other side renewed.
What sort of things does Mary do between that period of when Jesus is going to the cross, between those 2 points?
Between those 2 points,
and then realises that this is going to happen.
Well, she stands with the women as they are leading him through Jerusalem, and of course by now he's pretty beaten up and he's carrying this heavy cross, and she sees him and completely breaks down. There's nothing she can do. The Romans have got him. She knows he's going to the cross, and of course you can imagine the grief of seeing your son of 33 absolutely, cut to ribbons with whips, etc. So she goes through this terrible grieving time, and it's actually recorded in the Bible that she cries at the foot of the cross, and one of Jesus' friends takes her and takes care of her. Now after that, and after the resurrection, she sort of disappears from the pages, but there is the understanding that actually she is still with that group of friends, although Jesus is no longer there, but she carries on the work and encourages them to carry on the message of peace, in the world. So it's quite a good example for your
that sounds like
character.
That's the best one that I've heard so far when I've been trying to.
Yes, yeah.
So would you say Mary's underlying story is a story of redemption, or would you say it seems
not redemption, but coming through a horrendous experience, and she still has faith in herself and faith in a God. If you think back to her journey when she was expecting a baby, she was actually vilified and she was rejected by her own family. When Jesus was born in a stable, like we know the story, the nativity story, she'd been through hell then as well, because she'd been rejected by her own people because she was pregnant before she got married. So she's been through quite a number of quite bad experiences. So if you'd like me to write down and give you that story and see if it fits in with your character.
It does sound like it does fit. And it's quite a nice story to do as well. The story
Yes.
about Mary is a
Yes.
nice story.
Yeah. And I think that most people, even if they're not particularly religious, will be able to connect with the character of Mary. If you chose a biblical character that was not so well known, I suspect there might be a risk that they'd say, well, I don't know that story. There's another story of Abigail, who is in the Old Testament, that does a similar thing. She goes out to meet the armies and pleads for her city. And King David hears her and in the end marries her, but she goes through a really difficult time. So, but I will write all this down, and have you got a copy of a Bible that's in non-language? Yeah, that's good. Not the old King James.
It's only short though, mine. It's more like children's Bible.
That's okay. That's fine. No problem. But if you want a youth Bible that talks, that brings it into perhaps closer to everyday living, I can lend you one of those. That's not a problem.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, it's fine. So have I given you some ideas?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, massive help.
So you've got to portray this story, have you? Has the film been made?
No, it hasn't. But see, it's a competition called Enter the Pitch. It's basically we've got to pitch the idea.
And the winner gets to make the film?
Gets to make the film. But that's how it goes now.
Right. So could you write me down your email address so I can
no worries.
Send you the relevant passages?
Okay, yeah, that's FD, that is.
FD Mystery, that's your name. Okay. So do you live in Melton?
Yeah.
Oh right, okay. The name like Mystery, that's an Asian name, so where are your family from?
India.
India?
Half Indian.
Oh right, and you haven't seen anything in there, in your spirituality that catches this either, or are you asking for the interfaith
I don't know,
picture?
I'm a Christian, see.
Oh right.
I was baptised, so
Right, okay.
I don't really know too much
About Hindu or Sikh or whatever.
I find the gods fascinating though. The monkey gods.
So is your family Christian as well then?
Well, yeah. My mum baptised me. It's basically like I haven't had much connection with that side of my family.
Oh right, okay.
I've always been in the UK. So.
Oh right, okay. Yeah, so you haven't got generations going back. All right. Not in this country.
No.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay, is there anything else I can help you with?
No, honestly, that's brilliant. I just need the path now. Obviously, now I can look into it a lot deeper.
Yeah.
But it was trying to figure out what story's best to fit it in.
Yeah. Well, I hope I've given you some ideas.
Absolutely.
But I will look through and I'll do a number of stories, and then I'll leave it up to you which path you want to take. But if you want to contact me again and just check anything out, even by email rather than a meeting, I'd be very happy to help you.
Brilliant. Should I take your email, or shall I wait until you email me and then I'll have your address?
Yeah, all right, because I'll do it in the next day, because I know it's quite fresh at the time, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit.
Yeah, so if I get it to you by tomorrow...
Don't stress yourself though, isn't it?
No, that's fine. That's fine. So I'll get it to you by tomorrow.
Thank you.
And then you can have a look and choose your own path. I mean, if none of them fit, well, it's just been nice chatting to you anyway. So have you got a team with you that's doing this?
Yes. I mean, we're trying to film the first one, the story before this tale, before it kicked off at the moment, and I'll be using that for like pieces of media work. But yeah, I've got quite a bit of like but the contacts are sort of getting there.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's some people in the college that can help us out with it. I don't know, it's good. It's good. We're like,
And is your film set in the future? Is it science? Is it?
see, this is the thing. It's we've got to use the idea, but then we're allowed to portray that idea as long as it's got the underlying meaning.
Right. Okay. So you haven't gone that far yet of picturing it.
No, but I want to do it as a zombie film in sort of modern day times.
Oh right. Yeah.
Yes. So that's the thing. But obviously, as soon as we got the message, then it's up to us how we make it look. But obviously, this is all going to be written in the pitch, but we don't have to shoot any of it yet, which is really good.
Okay. Well, I wish you every luck for that, and I must go. Sean, there's nothing else I can help you with.
No.
I'll get that to you with all the chapters and verses.
Okay.
So thank you, Farley. It's been good to meet you, and I wish you every luck. I hope you win.
Yeah, you too.
Take your mobile phone. Thanks very much.
Okay, take care.
Bye.